Welcome back to the last part of full repertoire e4 for white. In this video we are going to cover all typical defenses and ideas for black that we didn't cover in the first two parts. If you didn't watch them, you can watch. I will put the links down below in the description. And I'm also recommending you to join the Discord server where actually you can connect with other chess friends. And if you got any questions, you can also ask me something. You're gonna get some member community role and you're gonna have some fun there, of course. So yeah, let's start with the Scandinavian. Like Scandinavian is one of very tricky openings, and a lot of people are really annoyed with Scandinavian. And I can recommend you always when they play d5 to take. There is no some good sideline against Scandinavian that you can play like against French, Caro-Kann, and Sicilian that we covered in the last videos. So you go for this typical idea. And now, for example, if you're wondering about main line, this is something we're gonna cover in this video, but there's also some sidelines that they can play, like they're gonna bring the queen here or they're gonna bring the queen on d6. So we're gonna cover this line because we still got the Pirc defense, mortar defense, and Owen defense to cover. And what can I say about these checks here? Like this check is just nothing. Like if you're a beginner and don't know how to behave on this move, always cover with bishop. And after they, let's say, develop the bishop on g5 to pin you, bishop g4, then knight f3 is a bad move because they're going to take and ruin your pawn structure. So you actually have to play here and move d4. After take and take, you already got huge development. Your bishop will get out, you will castle, and this is a very nice position already for white with much more developing pieces. So let's focus on the main line queen e5, which actually you mentioned in the comments that you are really annoyed by this line. I'm recommending the move d4. And now here black has some typical options. For example, they can play c6. That's one option, kind of waiting for you. They can also play the move knight f6. They can also go bishop f5. And they can also go something like e5. That's also possible. For example, what happens if they just typically and normally develop the knight here? The right move order, of course, we go knight f3. And of course that there is this typical bishop g4 move that's really annoying and that provokes you to go h3 g4, which is something we usually see in all of these lines. If you don't know, you have to play like this. Otherwise, you can get into the problems because very main plan of black is to go knight c6 alongside castles. And with that plan, he will actually get superior position than you. So that's why we have to go h3, bishop h5, g4. Like we are ruining the kingside structure, but we're also getting the space. And we are not going to actually castle this way. In the future, we're going to castle long. And now here I would like to recommend one very nice move, knight d2. So you are breaking the pin and you're also like looking forward to get on the other side of the board with something like knight b3, knight c4. This is typical, and also the ideas of f4, f5 is still there, such a h4, h5 there. The knight e5 move is also possible. This is one of the main moves. So for example, e6, h4, and here already black is having and facing some problems with his bishop. If they go with something like h6, we can go knight c4. Queen will move somewhere like a b4, because if they go on a6, they can face some problems on this diagonal. So queen b4, let's say, and after kicking the queen, queen goes back here, h5, bishop h7, and okay, this position is really dynamic. We got much space. Bishop will come here, queen somewhere, and go alongside castles with very nice position. So the move that you have to remember after kicking here is the move knight e2, which is the second best option next to the knight e5. So here if they play something like something else, like let's say knight bd7, anyway, you go h4, you want h5, after this you go knight c4, and you develop your pieces this way. Queen is also struggling where to go, because now queen b4 is not good, because after a3 queen is trapped, like queen does not have the e7 square to go back. So you have a very nice position in these bishop g4 lines. If they take you, that's just waste of time. That's immediately bad thing in sort, like let's say in the practice, because after take and c6 you have a bishop pair, bishop c4, bishop d2, castles, rook e1 is coming in, and I mean in practice this is always better for white. So let's say they play something else, like usually people like to go something like c6, trying to block any actions and also to create a gap for the queen to come back. Here, bishop d2, very normal move, developing a piece. What is your intentions? You want to play bishop c4, followed by something like queen to e2 and maybe long side castles, or even short side castle. That's also possible. On the other hand, if they go something like e5, which looks nice attempt of trading the pieces and central pawns, this is not good idea because symmetrical structure does not guarantee black like normal middle game, because look at his last rank. Every piece is staying there except queen. So we just develop the piece. Let's say they develop and pin us here, like very popular decision, bishop c4. So we are kind of preparing some nice tactical ideas of bishop takes f7, knight g5, and queen takes g4. So that's why they protect the following knight with bishop. And here we just take, they take here, queen takes, queen e5, and bishop e3. So again, you see, like we are going longside castles, putting the rooks on both lines with a bishop pair, open position, open structure, of course here dominating, and they're gonna only face the issues, not you. So the important thing is to not allow your opponent in all these lines to make this perfect setup of bishop g4, knight c6, and longside castles. That's something what black wants to do in all sort of positions. And the last thing that we can check is bishop f5 move. This is like a little bit premature move. We can go bishop d2. And if they go e6, intending to develop, bishop c4, of course, like you don't need to play still knight on f3. You're keeping the flexibility. Maybe your knight can come in future here. C6, and now g4 is also the option. Why you keep the knight flexible? Because you want to target this bishop. Bishop g6, queen e2, and you are very ready for this, and something like this or something like this is arising on board. Black has to be really careful. What can arise here? Let's say bishop e4 looks very natural, but here we go f4. All forward, knight e7, longside castles, kicks this bishop out of the way. If they take, you got a bishop pair, and most probably you're ready for some sort of trouble on this bishop. This knight, I believe, will come on g5 if there is some attacking ideas in future, or if we need some sort of defense, we can come back, but the main point is to defend the f4 square. So that's the main stuff about Scandinavian. And if you enter the line of knight f6, I'm recommending the move knight to f3. After knight takes d5, I'm recommending d4, bishop g4 as the most popular decisions, c4, knight b6, and now c5. In this position, if they don't, if black doesn't know how to react, with the move knight from 6 to d7, knight d5 is actually a very bad move, because after queen b3, they're literally collapsing. The best way is to bring this bishop back and defend this pawn, because you can't do it with queen, you're gonna lose your knight. You can't protect with b6, it's gonna just create a lot of trouble on the light squares, like bishop b5 is coming in, and just a lot of trouble here. So that's why black needs to bring the bishop here. And now what we should do, bishop e2, let's say, then we're gonna play knight c3, h3, later on again with the idea of g4, bring this bishop somewhere on f4, queen d2, and longside castles with very nice game. I think I actually played one game here recently. My opponent went for e6, I went knight c3, he went knight c6, I went h3, he went bishop h5, and then I still did not play the move g4 because I waited for him to go alongside castles, if I'm not mistaken. Something like this. Or no, sorry, actually instead of the move bishop e2, I did the move bishop c4 or something. e6, then we develop knight c3, knight c6, bishop e3, this is also a possible way, bishop e7, h3 here, and I played here the move queen e2, yes. And once they castle, here we go g4, and after bishop g6, h4. This is the point, like your bishop is here, putting the pressure on this line, you want to play h5, g4, g5, and so on, and of course you want to castle on the other side of the board. Amazing position for white, dominating. So if you ever face these knight f6 lines, remember knight f3, d4, c4, getting so much space in the middle with not problems at all. Pirc's defense, one of the really popular openings. Of course, you can come to this opening with many different move orders, such as from d4, such as from e4, such as from knight f3. But as we start with e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3. Now people are playing e5 if they don't want to avoid if they want to avoid the g4 lines. Like if they play knight bd7, g4 is really nice move, and black needs to handle this theory. So that's why people don't mind playing after knight c3 they move e5, don't mind to enter this endgame. Of course, we are not entering this endgame, we are playing knight f3, and after knight bd7 we are in the starting moment of Pirc where we are picking the lines. We can go bishop c4, there's the option of going g4 here now, we can go some g3 move, bishop g2, there's also first move a4 before all of that. But what I like to recommend is the move rook g1. By playing rook g1, you're telling your opponent one thing: you want to attack. That's very concrete. And the only way how they can defend it is not really with h6, because that's later on the hook, because you're going to target the knight and pawn at the same time. So after rook g1, my opponent went g6. I'm now showing you the game. Then g4. Now I'm taking the space. He went bishop g7. And now g5. So what's the point here? Like, you grab a lot of space on the king side, push this knight off the board, and once you develop your pieces, like bishop e3, queen d2, you will go castle long, and you're gonna start playing in the middle. So rook g1 looks like attacking move. Of course, sharp positions, it's very sharp. But if they pick this line with g6, you cannot really attack on the king side. That's a little bit of little problem. But you don't mind developing the pieces in the middle and playing in the middle, because you're gonna have a strong pressure along the d line. What you really need to know is to not develop this bishop from f1 for a big, like, let's say for one part of the opening, because this bishop is the best here, since if they ever come here, your bishop is outshining the knight, and this bishop is useless to go anywhere. Like, you won't manage anything here. In the future, we know that in the Pirc, they want to go c6 and b5. That's why I'm recommending to wait with your bishop on f1. And on the other hand, later, very later, you can include your bishop on e2, in some cases to attack this knight. So castle by my opponent, I went queen d2, c6, and longside castles. What is typical for them? They want to push b5, that's really obvious. They play queen a5, which is not the best option, because in some moments, if we move this knight out of the way, we can offer the queen trade, which actually, I don't think so black want to accept the trade of queens in this middle game, since this knight is out of the game and they have some space problems. They want to keep the tensions and start attacking like this. That's why I play king b1, trying to protect my pawn on a2 when they in future plan this b5, b4 invasion. Rook e8, and now h4. This is a good prophylactical move. Anyway, takes the space. Also opens the door for h5 if the knights get out of it. So I just want to try to see what they're going to do, because they spent the useful move. They already moved the queen, so bringing the queen back is now a waste of time. If they play b5, I have something on my mind. I will show you what happened. Actually, b5 happened in the game. If they play rook b8, maybe this preparation is not necessary. Knight f4 is losing the pawn, so we have a very static position waiting for our opponent. And once he starts pushing, here is our pawn. D takes e5. You can also go the move d5, but I think d5 leads to very complicated position after b4, d takes e6, b takes c3, c takes d7, queen sacrifice, bishop has to recapture, otherwise we're going to promote a queen by capturing the rook. So bishop captures here, queen takes c3, and this position looks better for white because we collect all of pawns, but there is some certain compensation on the b and c line. And I didn't like that, so that's why I took on e5. I liked more the way in this position how I'm gonna play on the d line. And my opponent saw the problem after takes, that maybe queen d6 will arise, but as similar as something happened in the game after knight takes e5, knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, here knight takes b5 works. And this is the motive in the Pirc defense that really arises when the queen is on a5, queen on d2. The real problem is the queen can't move anywhere. We just want a pawn, very important pawn for them. They need to accept queen trade, otherwise when the queen moves, we have knight c7, so they need to accept this. And the whole point is to sacrifice the piece and harass the rook, and suddenly the rook will get trapped. That's the whole story. And rook f8, bishop c6, hitting this rook, then collecting the other pawn. Do you see now the power of your position when you look at these cramped pieces on the king side? So these pieces will need a lot of time. Yeah, we're gonna win the rook, we're gonna give up another minor piece, but we're gonna have a rook and 3 pawns for 2 minor pieces, which for the endgame is too much, because pawns are too fast, you know? And what happened? Bishop e7, I took the rook, they took the bishop here, and I played bishop d6, targeting the rook with tempo, and then I start protecting my pawns. f5, of course I'm not gonna take, I don't want to allow the certain passers, so I took on f6, they take back, and now I start just pushing my pawns, and the pawns getting really annoying, pushing, and I don't care about anything, I just want a queen, and the moment when they resign. So that's how you play. You play rook g1, then you push g4, g5, play bishop e3, queen d2, and go castle here. Play king b1 as prophylaxis. That's it. Not really memorization, right? It's very simple. You just grab the space, and that's pretty much it. Okay. Owen defense, if that's good pronunciation. e4, b6. So I don't know how much people are playing this, but is the queenside fianchetto that is not really a great opening. This is good in queen's pawn opening, like if you play d4, knight f6, c4, and now let's say e6, knight f3, and then b6, then it's good. Then it's good because white didn't play the move e4, but after e4, b6, you know, d4, there is a lot of space already in the middle, and what I'm recommending is to start with this neutral way of defending, because if you expose your knight in the future, they can pin your knight, and that can actually make sense for this b6 idea. So bishop d3, and now they have a couple of ways how to play. If they go with aggressive approach, which is very logical and people like to attack this way, this doesn't work, because now, because you have your bishop on d3, you have another piece to enjoy your attack, and after takes, bishop takes g2, queen h5, this is a nice sacrifice of queen after g7, knight takes, and queen promotion. We promoted the queen, take the rook, and win the game, and king is also vulnerable. They're not really in time to take our rook here, they're gonna get checkmated. So if they play bishop g7 here, then we just take here, we check, they go here, knight f3, we are intending to jump here and also to go for mate, knight f6, queen g6. If they take now here, I believe that we are winning after the move bishop to h6, because you're threatening simple mate, and if they take you, you just take them check, and if the king goes here, there is a checkmate on g6. If the king goes on f7, I believe knight g5, king go here, and bishop g6 is mate. So that's not really working in this line. f5 is typical, but it's just does not work. So knight f6 is very logical. Now we go queen e2, very important move that we wanna still wait for them to see what they're gonna do. Will they play e6? Maybe they're gonna go g6. Maybe they're gonna play d6, you know. And here, like if they play e6, it will transpose into the e6 line, so somewhere here. And if they play here something like knight e6, we simply defend the pawn, and this is just not great position for white. Like, what is our plan? We would like to play knight f3, short side castles, push e5, get more space, develop our pieces, and that's it. That's how you set up your opening against the Owen defense. If they play e6, you go knight f3 anyway, and after knight f6, which is the most natural thing, this is a nice attack on the knight, because now the knight needs to like go somewhere. It's really challenging. If he goes on d5, we go c4, and if he goes b4, we just drop back, and we have intentions of playing a3, where the knight needs to go on some of these not so much favorable squares, as you see, because the other knight is on the way to get out, and squeezing the space closely and slowly will make them suffer, and with this beauty center, we just have amazing position. So that's why maybe knight e4 is more challenging, but here we play queen e2, and f5 or d5 could arise. It's best for them to go something like this because they're keeping the diagonal open for the bishop. And now after knight bd2, they are very ready to actually take here. Otherwise, they can get in the problem because the e line can get open. If they play something like d5, we can take. They will take, we take, and then the pawn on e6 is already hanging. So here we can actually win the game on the spot. So yeah, that's why they need to take here. We take back with bishop, and this looks like a solid position for black, but the very big problem is we are going alongside castles with king b1, for example. Later on, we can maybe even go typical idea of breaking this structure on the king side. They're not really having idea where to castle, because if you castle short, you're gonna face the problems on the king side attack. If you go castle long, you will have a lot of moments where you're gonna struggle with space, and you cannot really make this happen because how you're gonna develop the queen, the knight properly? You're just struggling. I can also push in the middle. So open defense is not something you should worry about. And final thing that we're gonna cover in this video is modern defense, which is very typical and similar to the Pirc, but it's starting with g6. And if they play here knight f6, it can transpose in some Pirc lines. But usually people are keeping flexibility and not developing this knight, which is the best option for black. And what they're really playing, they're playing this move order with a6. So they're keeping the flexible open diagonal. And here I have a recommendation of the move bishop e3. What is your intentions if they start with something like b5 immediately? Intentions are h4. And I recently have one game where one of my opponents, I think they played knight f6, and here I believe I did something like h5, or I think I played I think I played e5. They went knight g4, and in this position I went bishop f4, which is mistake, but knight g5 was actually much better move. After take, the problem with h6 is actually knight takes f7. And after king takes f7, we got this move queen f3, and we can win the rook. So always remember, when some diagonal gets open in any opening, and if the rook is on the target, always look about how you can use this diagonal, not really to win the rook, but let's say to at least get a tempo from that. Because if you attack the rook, they need to move it. They will burn a time. And if you do some tactics like this, you can win it. That's the thing. But actually here, instead of e5, the h5 is much better move. It's provoking the knight to take, but after knight g5, knight f6, e5, now the story is much different. We got to open h line, and let's say d takes, d takes. If we force the queen trade and make them go on h5 again, because going on g4 here, we'll face some problems on c7. Anyway, on h5 I'll face the problems, but maybe they wanted to keep some pawns, or I don't know really like why knight h5 is like better move than knight g4. Looks artificial to me, because anyway knight e5. Okay, let's say because maybe knight can come here in the future after getting this pawn, but we got g4, another pawn sacrifice. If the bishop captures this one here, there's some amazing move bishop d4 here, which is, after take, and after take here we are having two threats to win the rook, and also the bishop is sagging, so some crazy line. If you don't want to play this crazy, I believe that here on the move, maybe you can even here play the move e5, but I think knight g5 is the best, and after knight f6, yeah, I think you can accept this line and enter this endgame, which is not something you should sacrifice. Like, you can go f4. No need to sacrifice. Yeah, maybe you're gonna allow knight g3, but I believe that knight e5, and you don't really worry about your rook here, since you're gonna have not just this threat. Like, the threat is when they go here, you got the rook d8 mate. That's the biggest problem for them. So yeah, that's if they try to stop your pawn. If they go b4, attack your knight, you go knight e5, and you make this pawn sacrifice, which is really interesting for these structures, because this also gives you the open e line in some moment. You go bishop e3 to attack this knight, they go back, you take it, take them, and now you go knight g5. What is your threat? your threat is simple. You want to take and you want to do something on h7 or f7 or something here. No, maybe queen f3 again exists. For example, bishop b7 should be played just to stop queen f3. Queen f3 will be so annoying move. And now c4, getting more space. So we have a very nice compensation, because we know that black king will never ever go castle on this side because he will get checkmated. And maybe we want to play d5 to close this bishop so we can actually focus on our attack. Knight e7, queen g4, as you see, and we are just getting massive attacking chances, eliminating their strong bishop, closing this one, and okay, some computer lines here, as you see, but like you can play in much different way. Like I believe that here, after taking this bishop and closing the c5, you don't need to go for crazy a3 or something. I believe you can go alongside castles, put the rook on e1, move this bishop somewhere on h6 or f4, and just get your bishops active, and that's it. Your queen is already active, and you just need the rook on e1, and to move this bishop, you will have already better game. If they go with something different after h4 like h6, this is something which is possible. If you play h4, they want to play g5, but you're going to postpone that for a moment. This is popular to arise, and now in this position you have the option of h5, but there is even some option of a4, provoking them to go b4, and not just regrouping your knight. You go knight e2, and after they develop, you go h5, and when they push g5, you go knight g3, because this is your point in this line. Like, you provoke the weakness, c4 and the b4. Now you regroup your knight on g3, and with the inclusion of h5, because they played h6, now they get a hole on f5. And the only way how to play this position is to play e6 for black and to stay. Because if you ever push this pawn forward or do something with that, we're gonna plant the knight on f5, and that will be over for them. So to remember this setup, bishop e3, on b5 and energetic stuff, you go h4, h5. If they go knight f6 or something, we can go queen d2 typical. If they castle here, we can just continue with bishop h6. Later on, play bishop d3. After b5, bishop d3, where the counterplay comes. After b4, we go knight e5, and we focus on checkmate attack, and that's how we can play the modern defense. Thank you for staying the whole video. I really appreciate it. If you like this, please share it, make a subscribe, like the video, and if you really like my content, you can also join the school community, where actually you will get more content ideas and also more valuable lectures about the opening strategy, tactics, and many different stuff. I will put all links in the description. You can open whatever you want and join the Discord server for free community and to meet new chess friends. See you, and we are in touch.